Okay, fantastic. Hey, looks welcome to the Builders Webinar 12 Pro Tips to Fill Your 2025 Sales Pipeline, guys. I can see there are lots and lots of people on the call, so that's great. What I might ask you to do, I'm wondering if you'd be kind enough to go ahead and turn on your camera so that we can see your smiling faces. It just means that there's a bit the session becomes a little bit more interactive and we can actually ask questions. So Michael, Grant, Dan, David, great to see you're on. Scott, Daniel, good stuff. Um, and so there's Craig Preston too. Craig, you've got to turn on your camera, mate. We want to see your smiling face. Um, and Tobin and Glenn, good to see you on board too, mate. So guys, if you can just turn, oh, David, thanks for turning on your camera, mate. Appreciate it. That's really good of you. Um, all right, and we just Michael or Grant, Dan, if you're okay if you'd be good enough to turn on your cameras, and that way we can see your smiling face. That would be really good. All right. Okay, so look, there's a good number of people on the call, guys, which is fantastic. Look, for those of you that aren't familiar with the 12 Pro Tips webinar series, it's basically the idea of it is that it's a monthly set of pro tips where we gather specialists in the room. Hey, Glenn, thank you for turning on your camera, mate. That's good of you. So the idea is that we actually bring together experts who can help you solve a very, very specific problem in your business. And so we do this on a monthly basis because as builders know, so often you're out on site, you head down, bum up, and you don't actually have the opportunity to really learn as much as you'd like to. G'day, Craig. And so what we're going to do now, I'm just going to do a quick outline of what we'll be covering off. Now, as you guys know, builders have a variety of hats they need to wear, and I'm a little bit lucky in that I've researched over 1,000 builders in the way that they engage with clients. And so what we often see is you get this peak and trough in the way that you run your business. And so what happens is you go out and you do all your marketing and you run the work and you run your marketing and then you win the work and you focus head down, bum up on the work. And then you turn around and go, oh, hang on, wait a minute, we've got no work. We've got a hole in our pipeline. And so builders constantly feel like this bloke where you're spinning plates on sticks. And so if any plate slows down too much, it all turns to muck. So each of the specialists who are presenting today are going to be covering off exactly how you can even out that curve. So you're not doing up and down, up and down. You actually just got a nice steady growth because that's really what you want to achieve. The other comment that a lot of builders made was that marketing can be overpriced voodoo crap. And I think one of the things that can always happen is that it's very easy to spend a hell of a lot of money on marketing. There's no shortage of people that are wanting to actually go ahead and take it from you, that's for sure. And so what we're really wanting to do is set it up so that you're able to use tried and trusted marketing tasks. So you can actually go ahead and get good results for the way that works. The other thing that often people say is that they don't want to be a salesman. Okay, they feel like it's not like we all got our builder's license so that we can be the bloke in the shiny suit selling. Okay, and that's really not what you want to be doing as a builder. As a builder, you make your money when you're building. Okay, and as well as that, a lot of builders don't like selling. So we're actually going to show you a way to help showcase your expertise, which doesn't require you to sell. We're going to show you how to promote your services without doing the sleazy sales thing, which just isn't needed. The other part of it too is that they found that often trying to win the work distracted them from their core work, which is actually about focusing, on the work that's happening on site and making sure that that's happening efficiently. So doing that profitably. And also the other pain point that a lot of builders talked about was that they couldn't always create a client experience that would drive referrals. In order to get referrals coming into your business, and it's probably about once you can strike a point whereby half the work coming into your business is from referrals or repeat business, what that does is it actually tends to enable the builder to have a much easier life. And so we're going to talk about creating that experience that will drive referrals. So that's where we're coming from. Just to kick things off, I'm just going to introduce you to the people who are presenting today, and I'll just quickly touch on who they are, and each of them is going to be presenting 3 key points. The first is Kurt Hegerschweiler from Builders Coach. Just before we started this call, I think I heard him say that he's now been coaching builders, I think, for about 20 years. So I think, Kurt, you've claimed the veteran status of this call, which is a good thing. But there would have been a lot of builders over the years in that time where you've seen them go through a lot of things, and so you will really be bringing a lot of value to this call. So Kurt, I just want to welcome you to the call. Are you there, mate?
Yes, good to go. Thank you, Richard. Pumped, excited.
Fantastic. That's good, mate. So and the next person we've got here is Jeff Thompson from Renovare. And so for those of you that don't know Jeff, basically Renovare is a company or a franchise that actually helps builders, small builders, actually grow their business, implement systems, and actually go to the next stage in their business, so they can actually map out the pathway forward and do that, because that's a tough journey to do. So Jeff, are you on the call there, mate? I'll just check that you're there. We've got so many on the call, I can't quite see your face. You're there?
Yeah, thanks for having me today. And yeah, I'm like Kurt, very pumped to have a chat to everyone here today. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. All right, and then finally, or not finally, the third person is Corné Ladigan. So Corné is basically a specialist in marketing who focuses only on helping builders market their business. So Corné's biz video is really focused on identifying the key things that will drive success in marketing for builders. So they're not necessarily generalists. He's really focused on driving success in marketing for builders. So Corné, good to have you on the call too, mate.
Thanks, Richard, mate. Appreciate it.
Good on you. All right, so just quickly, I've already sort of introduced myself. So I'm from ProCalc, former builder, have interviewed almost 1,000 builders in terms of the way that they engage with clients, and so I'm a bit of a nerd. I really enjoy working out how you can actually make that first meeting work better than it ever has. And so that's probably where I'm coming from. And so I'll fold some of the things that I've learned interviewing all those builders over the years into the presentation as well. So first off, I'm actually going to hand over to Kurt Hegerschweiler from Builders Coach, and he's just going to step through some learnings for you that will help you really think broadly about the way that you can actually top up that pipeline for 2025. So Kurt, over to you, mate.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Richard. Welcome, guys. Thanks for joining us on the call. I respect and appreciate how much your time is worth. So we're going to make this as valuable an exercise as possible. So let's jump straight in, focusing on high value jobs, right? So you, as the owner of your business, deciding on what that is for you, what your highest value jobs are, is possibly the most important strategic business decision you will ever make. And just know that most business owners, not only builders, but most business owners don't take the time to really decide or look at, what their highest value jobs are. And this is all about chasing the margin, then the revenue. And in your defense, if you haven't done this, it's probably because you can't see the wood from the trees, and you're so busy trying to get work, do work, get work, do work, that you've lost sight of, what the most profitable jobs are, or how to even identify what the most profitable jobs are. But the bottom line is, if you look back at your last 10 or 20 jobs that you've done, you'll find that the margin or the profit you made on those jobs will differ from job to job. Some will be very profitable, others less so. So really it's about, to identify the high value jobs, it's taking the time to look at those higher profit jobs, and then asking yourself, can you increase the percentage of that type of work, or maybe even specialize in that type of work? Richard mentioned before that you're not a salesperson. You don't want to be that secondhand car salesman. You're never going to do that. What you want to do is identify a niche market, a specialty where there's margin, And if you're wondering what that is, I can tell you right now, luxury custom homes, architectural builds, high-end renovations, and then layering that specialty with something else like green technology and smart technology puts you out in an area where someone looking for a a high-end architectural build, a renovation with smart technology, with green technology, all of a sudden you become highly relevant to that sector of the market or that individual, and you become a very specialized solution provider for them. And if you dig a deep groove in that space, in that layered niche, you eventually become undeniable. All right. So even your competitors will have to admit that you're exceptionally good at what you do. And that's when you can go out into what we call a blue ocean. And that allows you to convert margin. What it also allows you to do is to engage with people during the pre-construction phase and sign preliminary agreements and charge for quotes. Just mention in the chat if you charge for quotes already. Just give us a yes if you could. But if you do, you're ready, you know what I'm talking about there. The next progression from that is value management, which I'll get to in a sec. And that lends itself to a one builder tender process. Okay, so take the time, guys, take the time, even if you're going to sacrifice a weekend, to look at the jobs you're doing. What are the highest margin jobs? Can you specialize in them? And then look to layer that specialty. Layering is just putting 2 or 3 different subspecialties into that one area of specialty, and then you sort of dominating that space. You want to absolutely dominate that space. So I've gone over just over 3 minutes on the first one, and we'll move on to the second slide, Richard. Systemizing your business. All right, your systems set you free. Okay, your systems set you free. Guys that are running on a hamster wheel, and hopefully this isn't you, but if it is, just know that you can fix it quite quickly. If you're just getting work, doing work, and you're running your business like it's 1985 or 1995, you don't have a lot of systems and structure. Maybe you've got your bookkeeping system and a website, just fundamentals, but nothing else. Then you're going to be doing a lot of grunt work, right? And it's like revving a car in second gear. When you just, you're going to do more, you're just hitting the accelerator, and eventually something's going to give and it's going to break. So step one is deciding to work on your business. And then time blocking. I always recommend 5 hours a week to work on your business. Use a 12-week plan, have 4 of those plans in a calendar year, and work on the systems that you most want to apply. And then this is where you want to get help. I'm not trying to promote my business, but there's a sequence for systems implementation. We follow the 80-20 rule. There's 20% of your systems give you 80% of your results. And there's certain things you need to do first, in the same way that when you build a house, you lay a slab first, right? So the fundamentals for your business systems are your financials, your sales, your marketing, deciding on that niche or that sub niche like I just spoke about. And then starting to put process and people in place so that you as the business owner can step back and play more of a directional role. So you free up time and money. The 2 areas where you can free up the most amount of time, the 2 roles that you would want to systemize and then put people in place, are office admin and a site supervisor. All right. I don't have to tell you, that's going to give you 20, 30 hours a week. And then you can allocate that time to working on the front end, on your sales and marketing. And I don't like those terms, sales and marketing, because you're not really selling. You're more of a solution provider, right? You want to be the lighthouse that's just offering a specific solution to people. They come through, and then your sales process is you just onboarding them through your value management or sales process. By the way, if you guys want a copy of our sales process, you can email me, info@builderscoach.com.au. No strings attached. I'll send it all across. Otherwise, go to builderscoach.com. and you can get a copy of my book, $1 Million Builder. Everything's in there, the whole sales process with all the documentation. We'll even send it to you for free. I'm not trying to sell my book, just genuinely trying to help you guys, and also conscious of time. The last thing I want to touch on is charging for quotes. So if you want to move to the next slide there, Rick.
Sorry, mate.
No, that's okay. So hands down, the biggest inefficiency in the industry, guys, is quoting, right? We all know it. Now, charging for quotes, I had a webinar 2 weeks ago today, actually, and this guy was like, he got quite upset with me because he didn't believe that it's possible. But look, the data's out. There's a great report. You'd be familiar with APB, Rich, the Association of Professional Builders. They've got a report called the Saucy Report. They've done a report. It's great. It does a review of all the builders in the Western world, so Australia, New Zealand, the US, Canada, and the UK, who are proactive with business development. And in the first time in 5 years of doing this annual report, more than half the builders said they charge for quotes. Okay, so we've been talking about it for 12 years. Finally, we've tipped the scales. The next progression from there, so all of you guys that said yes to charging for quotes are using prelims, the next progression is a value management process. And I can't go into it because I've got another 1.5 minutes left. But the webinar from 2 weeks ago was 90 minutes of just talking about this value management process with one of the builders that I'm working with in Melbourne. His name's Craig DeCourcy. So I'm happy to send a recording of that out to anyone, and also all the documentation. Guys, this is the next frontier. I'm time stamping it. Every builder is going to have a layered niche, an area of specialty that they dominate, and then follow a value management process, because the benefits to the builders are off the Fargan charts. Okay, so I'm talking margins of 35%, which by the way is a 54% markup. All right, I've always traditionally spoken about a 33 markup, 25 margin, but you can achieve that margin because of the meticulous decision making and collaboration with a designer and an estimator, which is what you want to do when you charge for quotes. And what that does is it brings the build cost down by 7%, increases the efficiency of the build by up to 15, even more if you're in Australia. So that means you can add another 10% in your margin. The client gets a better build, better quality build done quicker for the same or less money. All right, so this is game changer. And then there's benefits to the architect that I won't get into because I'm about to run out of time. But essentially they cut out 30 or 40% of the time they would spend in a tender process. So guys, that's it for me. We've got 15 seconds for questions.
So guys, look, I think what might be a good move, if you've got questions, because Kurt's covered a lot of territory there, and it's great to see that there are quite a few people charging for quotes. I can see those that have put their information in there. What I might ask you to do, if you have a question as we go along, please do pop the question into the chat box, and that way, no matter who's presenting or who's talking, we'll have a record of it. And we can double back and do that. So I think one of the questions that we've got here for you, Kurt, is just a request that you put the link to that value management webinar in the chat, and that's from Scott B. So if you'd be kind enough to do that, that'd be awesome.
That's a great suggestion, Scott. Thanks for that. I can do that right now.
Excellent. All righty. So next. Thanks for that, Kurt. Next, we're now going to hand over to Jeff Thompson from Renovare. And so, Jeff, take it away, mate.
Good stuff, Kurt. Fantastic. Great information. Look, just touching on what Kurt was saying and understanding what your niche is, I'm going to go a little bit deeper on that, and we're going to sort of talk about what the ideal client or what your avatar looks like in that niche, all right? So for us at Renovare, we specialise in renovations. That's our core business. So that is our niche. That's what we're specialising in at the moment. So understanding going to the next level and what Kurt was saying around the niche is really understanding what our ideal customer looks like. So the way that we understand this, and once again, I'm happy to share some information. What we've done of late is we've most probably gone back over our whole group, and we've done a bunch of surveys on our last 30 to 40 contracts that we have just recently signed or jobs we've started. And what we've done is we've got a survey around that, and then we get a clear understanding on ideally what our ideal customer looks like in our renovation space, which is our niche that Kurt was talking to us about. And interesting enough, it's quite interesting the data you get out of that, right? Because what we ideally think is our ideal customer sometimes actually isn't. Okay, so some of the interesting information that we got from this data was that in 90% of cases that the male was involved in the decision process. Okay, so I always had a belief that being in this game, that a lot of the time it was the female that had a lot of decision making happening. She is still heavily involved, but our data clearly shows us that in a lot of cases the male is the dominant decision maker in the process. Okay. Other things we found is our ideal client or our ideal avatar for us at Renovare is a customer aged between 45 and 50. okay? 63% of them are paying cash, okay? So what that means is they don't have construction loans, okay? They've got equity in the home, they're redrawing down on their home, and they've got cash available. So we're not having to go through the process of doing construction loans with these, or having contracts that are attached to construction loans, which is really interesting. 68% of our client base, or our ideal client or avatar, are professionals, okay? Another 11% on that were actually in the medical industry. So in some cases, medical, professional, similar thing. So, you know, we're talking sort of somewhere around 80% of our database, or our data is telling us that our ideal client or avatar is a professional, with 11% of them being coming from the medical industry. 90% of our customers are Australian. Okay, so there's something for you. We haven't managed to crack, you know, those other ethnic groups yet, but 90% are our Australian is what our clients are. 63% of our actual job size is over 100 square meters. Okay, so really digging down onto the data on what your niche is, and then understanding what that client looks like. Another really interesting bit of data that came out was 63% of them used our concept plans. We're big on selling concept plans at Renovare. We figure if we can get sort of $2.5 to $3 grand out of them early on in the process, they're normally pretty good customers. So Kurt was touching on you know, charging for quotes. This is our way that we get around for charging for quotes. Okay, we work closely with designers and get a plan at a discounted rate, and then we load it up. We've got some margin in there, and effectively that's paying for our time to quote as well. So that works quite effectively for us. Okay, so really understanding what your niche is, exactly what Kurt says, but then identifying what the client looks like that's attached to the niche. Yep. Then that just leads into the next one around developing content that relates specifically to your avatar, your ideal client. So with the information there, all the data that we've got, you know, we can start building content around that. Okay, what we've found works particularly well for us at the moment, which is generating lots of leads, is a lot of our own content. Okay, what I mean by that, it's a lot of Renovare branded guys on site. We're finding, yep, a lot of the shiny pictures, the after pictures, the after stuff videos work really, really well for us. But what we're finding, and Corné will be able to touch on this later, is building some personality around your brand, around your business. Okay, so what we're finding is happening, working really, really well with our content at the moment, is building content where we've got our guys out on site doing work. It's weird, but people like watching that stuff. They like watching that stuff. So, and it helps, I suppose, get some credibility around the sort of work that we're targeting, all right? So, you know, with a male, when we're marketing directly to him, he likes to feel like you know, he's dealing with people that actually know what they're doing. So showing content around guys out on site doing the work, and it's our specific branding, our specific sites, works really, really well. We find that having, you know, Photoshop pictures and stuff just doesn't work anymore. So that's what we're finding there. And then, yeah, this is a big one, I feel, too. You know, I think you've got to really understand your numbers, guys. You know, there's a lot of building terminology that, you know, you guys talk in regards to, you know, your communication in regards to certain things. But what we find specifically, you know, with marketing especially, is you've got to really understand what these marketing people are talking about, right? Because it is a bit bamboozling, you know, like you've got to understand what a CPL means, a cost per lead. You've got to understand what SEO means. You've got to understand what a PPC, a pay per click, means. You've got to really understand that, because each one of those things actually attaches a dollar value to it, okay? And then you've got to work out whether that dollar value is actually a good return on your investment when it comes to your marketing. Earlier in the chat, one of the comments Richard made was that marketing is overpriced voodoo crap. That's the general consensus from a builder. It is, if you're not getting the result you need, right? It's only expensive, it's only overpriced if you're not generating a lead from it. So understanding how you're generating the lead, and then understanding the cost that's attached to the lead, is really, really important. So always make sure that, you know, our guys with their marketing teams, every fortnight, monthly, at a stretch, are really sitting down with their marketing people and understanding exactly what's happening with their marketing and how much every lead is costing them that's coming through the door. All right. And then if it's not working, how do we change it to make sure that we are generating numbers moving forward? It's pretty important. So just making sure that you're reviewing your numbers is important, making sure you're holding your marketing people accountable in some cases, because it's your money potentially that they're spending, and you want to make sure that you're getting the best result from that. So yeah, drilling down on that is just really understanding that. Like I say, in regards to the survey, if anyone wants that survey so they can go back over their last, I would say 6 to 10 contracts and drilling down on really understanding, what your ideal client looks like. Happy to share that with you. And then you can pull that data out and start tailoring your marketing to best suit, best suit your marketing strategy moving forward. That's me.
Jeff, just wonder if you'd do us a favour. You've covered some really good territory there about making sure that your message is tailored for a very specific group, a specific, whoever it is that you're targeting, and also holding the marketing effort, accountable and making it, applying some metrics to it, which is really, really important. In terms of people reaching out to you to get that information from you, are you okay just to put your contact details or however it is they can contact you in the chat box? Is that okay?
Yeah, sure. No problems at all. Yeah, I can email that out. That's not a problem at all. If anyone wants that, it's really cool. You can pull that data in and really understand exactly what you need. It's great, because what we've been able to do with that data, Richard, is take it directly to our marketing people and say, hey, look, we want to specialise in renovations. This is what we specialise in. This is what we're finding our data is looking like. This is our ideal customer. And then they can start tailoring some marketing towards it. It's been very, very effective for our guys.
Awesome. No, that's great. Thanks, Jeff. I really appreciate it. All right. Next, we've got Corné Ladigan from Biz Video. Are you there, mate?
Yeah, thanks, mate. Yeah, first of all, thanks again for everyone, like Kurt said, taking time out. This is awesome. Some great content already. I guess I'm going to be focusing more on the story side of thing. And the first topic I want to talk about is the science of story connection, right? So if you can go maybe just to the next tip, I think we've got the tips jumbled up there, Rich. Yeah, there you go. And then the next one, go back, and then we'll go from there. So just keeping things interesting here. So there's this guy called Uri Hasson. So he's a neuroscientist and a professor from Princeton. And his research actually suggests that the brains of a storyteller and a story listener can actually synchronize. So by simply telling a story, a person can plant ideas, thoughts, and emotions into the listener's brains. So by telling a great story, you can actually change the way the audience thinks and even behaves with your brand. So when you tell a genuine story, your prospects, like their brain, mirrors your brain activity. So some pretty high-end stuff there. But I think the reason why this is so important for builders is because the whole building market is flooded, right? So every time I drive to the office, I see a new ute, like with new signage from a builder that I've never seen before. And this is very important for builders, especially if you want to start looking at syncing with those ideal prospective clients that you want to work with. So how you go about this is really about sharing your story. So kind of like what Jeff was saying before there, in his case, the guys, seeing the on-site, that's them syncing with that story, right? So what you want to do as a builder is really tell your story, tell also the stories of your clients so that they can also sync with that. And then with those stories, you want to tell those stories throughout your marketing. So that is your organic social media, your paid advertising, your website, and so on. But I think a huge missed opportunity that a lot of builders don't think about is using it throughout all their processes. So Kurt always talks about systemizing your sales and all that. So incorporating your story within your sales, so being able to send your story to people, before you maybe catch up on like first consultation and so on. So you want to think about how can I inject my story throughout that whole process? And the one thing you want to remember is people don't remember what you tell them. They actually remember how you make them feel. And story is the best way to make someone feel. So now we'll go back to the tip 7. Thanks, Richard.
Yep. Let's just see if I can make it go backwards. Doesn't want to go backwards, I'm afraid. Let's see.
Oh, that was a good slide as well.
It was your best slide, I'm sure.
I know.
Oh, there we go. We got it.
There you go. Build trust before the first interaction. All right. So again, this leads from the first section that I just spoke about there. So really what this is all about is a lot of builders we talk to say their first meetings are often like very painful and awkward. It's all about price, even though you don't really have enough information to even start talking about price. I know Kurt was talking about, quoting and charging for quotes before. So why at this point are you talking about price before you even know anything? But it's because the clients, that's all they know. They don't know anything else to talk about. So what you want to do is, and you want to aim to build as much trust before this first conversation. So you want prospects to be emotionally connected to your building business and why they should build with you. You need to be in sync, like I spoke about before about Yuri Hassan. And we have dozens of stories of builders telling us, like even on our podcast called the Inspired Builders Podcast, little shameless plug there. So what our builders are saying is they, when prospective clients first come to them, they say things like, it feels like I already know you. We want you to build our home. There's this connection. And again, it's in line with what Yuri Hassan talks about in terms of those brain waves being on the same wavelength. So why should builders care about this, especially this first interaction? Well, when clients trust you before the first meeting, they are pre-sold on your value, making the whole sales conversation a lot easier and faster as well. You're kind of like skipping that first awkward interaction where you're just trying to like figure each other out. So how do you do this? So you have to remember this word called story, and you have to have it at the forefront of your mind whenever it comes to marketing. So you need to emotionally engage prospective clients with your story. Again, client stories, and also something what we call long form story content that really educates. So once they are emotionally connected, you want to give them long form. And that's why we suggest like podcasts and so on, so that they can spend even more time with you before they even come to you. So I hope that all makes sense. Let's go to tip number 9. Cool. So this is a cool little story. So I call it the 10-year story power, the power of story. Okay. So the thing is, we live in this whole disposable world. So especially when it comes to marketing, a lot of builders have the same mindset, or they position their marketing for just that next job or that next lead. They don't think about the 10-year. All right. So 10 years ago, I came across a video on YouTube about this cool watch manufacturing company in Detroit in America. And this watch brand was called, or is called, Shinola. And this video was all about why they exist and their whole vision to bring manufacturing back to Detroit. Now, I'm not too clued up on the whole history of Detroit, but I know there was a massive change there, and it disrupted the whole that whole location, and a lot of people lost jobs because of manufacturing and so on. So they want to bring manufacturing back to Detroit. So it was this real cool story. And the other day, our landlord actually walked into our office just to say hi, because he's in Brisbane, just to have a chat. And while we're talking, out of the corner of my eye, I kept seeing his watch, but I couldn't read the name on this watch. All right. But I thought, okay, this might be a Shinola. So what you have to remember is I have never seen any of these watches in person or in the shops. I don't even know if they sell these watches in Australia. And after a few minutes, it was just bugging me. I almost couldn't even hear what he was saying. I was like, mate, just real quick, is that a Shinola? The watch company from Detroit. And he said, yes, it is. Now, why would I remember this obscure watch brand that I've never even seen in real life or anything else like that? I've only watched that one video ever. After that, I've never, ever came across it again. All right. So one thing you have to remember is in the watch world, there are thousands and thousands of different watch brands. So why should I remember this? Well, the thing is, I was connected to the story. And even with his landlord, I was saying, yeah, I watched this video and it was a cool story about Detroit and this and this and this. And I remembered everything. And Shinola, it's not a name that you would normally just remember. If my friend said to me, yeah, there's this cool watch company called Shinola 10 years ago, I would have forgotten it, by the next conversation. So this is super important for builders, because when someone finds out about you the first time, they might not build with you, or for that matter, with anyone, whether it's like 6 months, 2 years, 5 years, or even longer, but they need to remember you. So how do you do this as a builder? Well, it comes back to you need to create a wonderful first interaction with the prospective client. Now, the unlucky thing is you don't always have that that power to be able to make that first interaction in person. So that's why you need to do that in your marketing. You need that deep emotional connection with them so they remember you. They need to remember you because of your story. And that is why story within marketing is so powerful, because it's not just about that next lead or that next job or contract. It's about using your story to make people feel something and really remember you and really make you stand out from all the other builders. And this goes heavily in line with what, you know, Kurt and Jeff was also talking about, especially Jeff, when you were talking about your avatar, right? So if you know that avatar and you can create story to emotionally connect with those people, that'll set you apart from any other builder, because then they'll be like, well, there is no one else like that. So I hope that makes sense. I think my time's up. Thank you, Richard.
Fantastic, Corner. That was really good, mate. And it was a changing pace, wasn't it? When you start telling a story, it just really means that you can actually tap into it. So if the guys on the call, Corner, want to reach out to you, are you okay just to put your contact details in the chat box there so that they can contact you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. All right, that's good. Thanks, Corner. That's a really insightful set of tips there. So that's good. Now, just for myself, I'm going to take you through tips 10, 11, and 12. And a lot of the tips that the guys have been talking about have been quite strategic in nature. I'm going to flip it round and say, all right, what do you do right now if you're looking to fill your pipeline? What's a way that you can do that? And so one of the key things that as I say, we've done a lot of research with builders, and we've also done a lot of research with architects. And one of the biggest pain points that architects, designers, and drafties have is that they will go ahead and they'll develop a design, but they don't actually have any idea of what it's going to cost to build. Okay, that's not their expertise. That's your expertise as a builder. So what happens is that they go ahead, and we've all been on the receiving end of this, of when you know, somebody drafts up a set of plans and the client might have spent tens of thousands of dollars, possibly more, on creating a plan set, and then somebody's told them that there's $1 million build, and then you go ahead and look at it and go, oh, I reckon it's about 1.5. You know, so it's a very difficult challenge space that these architects work in. What they miss is actually the ability to run a feasibility right at the very beginning when they've first done their draft concepts. And so the opportunity that exists for builders, and I'll step you through how to do this very easily and efficiently in a moment, but the opportunity that exists for builders is to actually start partnering with architects who need to understand the likely cost of their concepts at the beginning of their process rather than at the end of their process. Because if it's at the end of the process, they've got to go through a whole redesign, which is probably another, I don't know, 40, 50, 60 hours of work. Okay, and an unhappy client and an unhappy builder, and you know, you guys know the drum on that one. So if you're looking to grow work with architects, tip one is approach architects nearby that work in the areas and do the sorts of jobs that you want to do, but say to them, look, we can actually go ahead and support you in developing costings for these concepts. And we can do that for you, you know, fairly easily and efficiently. So offering that up as a way for them to actually test their concept costs will actually be a really powerful way for you to connect with them, because they will value you, they'll respect you, and want to actually engage with you. Now you can do that. You can do that. By the way, you can do that manually. You can actually go ahead and crunch the numbers yourself, or you can use ProCalc to do that in just a matter of minutes, instantly online. So that's the first thing there. First tip there, I'd say, if you'd like to use if you're not watching this on your phone, you can probably get a screenshot of that QR code. I'll also circulate the links later on. But the key thing there is that the architect or the designer's pain point is actually at concept stage, or that's when they're creating their pain. Often, for whatever reason, they often don't realise that. So that's the time when they need you most. So that's tip 10. But the next thing is, it's also about targeting the right architects and designers who are busy. So I think Kurt earlier on touched on the 80-20 rule. And the way that this works as far as architects go is that about 20% of architects have got about 80% of the work. All right. And I've seen these patterns over and over again. It's just the way it happens. You know, they might be more established architects, or they've got a better process, whatever it is. But the way for a builder to identify who those architects are is it takes about an hour or two, and you can actually go to your local town planning websites for your local council, go to there and look at the jobs, the town planning applications that are being advertised, and zero in on the jobs, like Jeff was touching on earlier, zero in on the jobs that are of interest to you. So it might be an extension, or it might be a new build, or whatever it may be. Zero in on those and look at what architects are doing those projects. What you'll find is that you'll get a few red herrings here and there. You'll have some architect from the other side of town who's appeared in this particular geographic area. But what you'll also see is you'll probably come across a handful of architects or designers who operate in your area and do multiple jobs with that particular council. And once you've identified them, they are your target. So the idea is that you could actually approach them and say, hey, we can support you with very quick feasibility studies for your concepts. How about the next time you've got one and you need some help, reach out to us, okay? And what that then does is that it actually helps them understand that you're there to help them. It will help them respect you and what you've got to offer. But importantly, it also means that you then become the go-to builder for them. And so I'm thinking of a builder on the just on the northern beaches in Sydney who started doing this with ProCalc. And what he did was he approached about 4 different architectural firms and said, look, we can do a feasibility for you. We'll turn it around for you in a couple of days. What then happened was that one of those architecture firms said, oh, look, we've got a few. Could we send them through to you? And he said, yeah, that's fine. And so this firm is now sending through about a dozen jobs a month to Sam. And Sam looks at them and watches them go through, and he puts them through ProCalc, crunches the numbers, sends them back. But then he watches them go through, and then he picks maybe 1 or 2 that he loves the look of. He says that is the job that is right location, right sort of client, right type of project. It ticks all of the boxes that we want in our projects. Hey, Mr. Architect, this is the one that we want to put our hand up for. And so the architect says, yep, no worries, you're in. You go ahead and do that. And so what that does is it really drives that builder as the primary builder for that architecture firm. And so his business has now just completely taken off, just simply as a result of changing the way that he approached architects. So that's tip 11. And then finally, it's about fixing the first meeting. So as I mentioned earlier, it's very easy to go on site, wander around, clients waving their arms, you get dragged around, walking around according to their criteria, according to their agenda, and then they try to corner you and say, all right, what's it worth? Okay, and so, and I think this has been touched on a couple of times by other presenters. The idea is that with any first meeting, you want to have some goals that you want to achieve, and it's not to, if in your first meeting, you're never going to walk out of there with a signed contract. It's just, it's impossible the way the industry works. However, what you can do is set it up so that, one, you are going to be the preferred builder. If they do happen to be talking to other builders, you'll be the preferred builder. 2, you will be the trusted expert. And 3, you will be paid for the first meeting. So, and the easiest way to explain how to do that, you'll see there's another QR code there, and there's also a template, which I will also circulate later on. But basically, if you run the client through this structure and this template, what it does is it gives you a report that you can give to the client after you've met with them. Okay. And so if you're actually giving them a ProCalc report and a report that covers the functional feasibility of their project, you can charge for that, and clients are happy to pay for it. So you really can set it up so that the client goes, wow, this guy was really good. He actually knew all the information I needed to know. And so I'm confident that he's actually across his brief. He understands the project. He understands me, and he understands what clients like me need. So, so what I'll do is we'll circulate that, but do grab the via the QR code if you want to. So look, we've now covered quite a bit of territory, guys, and even if you sort of come away just with one tip that you've got value out of, what it means is that you can implement that in your business and actually take it forward. So, in summary, it's really crucial that you focus on the jobs that matter, the jobs that are going to progress your business forward, the clients that are going to progress your business forward. So do a heavy job of qualifying them. And I think one of the things that Kurt teaches in his clients or his builders is qualify the living daylights out of them before you go and see them. Okay, don't ever just rock up randomly going, oh yeah, well, we'll have a bit of a chat. That's not going to be constructive for you or for them for that matter. You want to make sure that you've got specific outcomes that you get out of that first meeting, and that, or you can also give to them, and therefore you can actually monetize that with them. They'll pay you for your advice and your expertise. Implementing that marketing system with content that targets the avatar. So like Jeff was saying, making sure that you're constructing content that is relevant to your target market. It's extremely powerful, and I think I can't remember who it was. Somebody talked about, it might have been you, Corné, where you talked about how a builder rocks up to site and the client starts talking to you like they know you, and it's simply because you've been targeting them with the right content, you've been staying in touch with them, communicating with them, and the result is that and you've been able to do that automatically too. By the way, it's something that you can set up in a CRM system. The other thing is, make sure that you deliver value by providing them with a report or 2 reports or whatever it needs to be, so that you can then charge for your expertise. If the reason most builders don't charge for their first meeting is because they don't give anything tangible to the client for the first meeting. Okay. So if you can give them a document, if you can give them something that's relevant to their specific project, that's customized, that will be a really powerful thing for them. They'll actually take that and go, this is great. I've got the information that I need. And what that then does is it helps you become their trusted expert or their preferred builder. Okay. So when you're actually working with them and sharing information with them and answering their questions, what you're doing is you're not only helping them understand the way that you work, you're not only helping them become better clients and actually more informed clients, but you're actually showcasing your expertise. And when you can showcase your expertise, that's when it really comes to the fore. That's when you can really get good value out of it. And a key part of that is, don't ever sell to a client. For any of you who get the hot sweats thinking, oh shit, I've got a client meeting, I've got to sell to them, I've got to put my best foot forward and all that sort of thing. I promise you can drop that altogether. You can let it go. If you go in there with a hat putting the hat on of I'm here to help, what that does is it just automatically answers the client's questions, and it draws out that information, that expertise that you have in your head, because clients are, and look, we've all seen this, clients are clueless about the job. They don't know how much work's going to go into it. They rely upon you to do that. So that's really a key thing. You don't need to sell. Now, as we've gone through here, each of the presenters has put their details in the chat box. We've also had I've also put a couple of QR codes up. Everybody presenting on this call has already said, look, they're happy for you to reach out to them and have a bit of a chat if you've got specific questions about things that they've talked about. But look, there may also be people who would like to ask some questions now. So in the chat box there, please do feel free to use that, or you can actually take yourself off mute and actually go ahead and ask a question there if you'd like to. Now I'll just quickly check the chat box. So yeah, and so Michael has made the comment there really about adding value from the first meeting, and he's absolutely nailed it. So the idea is that if you're talking about that very first meeting, if you can walk in and showcase value to the client, what that then does is it makes them go, gee, this guy knows his stuff, and he's actually happy to share. And it adds that value. It positions you as the expert. So that's really the key thing there. So, guys, any other questions or comments that you'd like to throw in there? No, it sounds like we've covered the territory pretty well. So look, just in terms of Jeff and Kurt and Corné, guys, were there any sort of final comments that you wanted to throw in there? Perhaps Corné, if you go first. I can see you're off mute, so maybe if you go first, mate.
I'm trying to just think of some points, but I guess just to validate what you were saying, like, people, like anyone that's building a home or renovating, they're looking for an expert, right? That's why they're getting a builder. So yeah, you're 100% right. If you can position yourself as an expert from the very first meeting, and like I said, like even earlier, like the first interaction, the first time they come across you on social media, or the first time someone refers them, or whatever it is, if you're positioned as that expert, from that moment to handover and beyond, like that changes everything.
It does.
I know,
yeah. And I think that also stimulates referrals as well. So if you're positioned as the expert right at the very beginning, and you maintain that status all the way through, it then enhances the referrals that come out of it later on.
Yeah, and I mean, I know, like, I can see a client of ours on here, Craig Preston. I don't want to chuck you on the spotlight here, but something that he does really, really well is it doesn't matter how warm or cold or whatever a lead is. Craig is there to go and position himself as the expert by providing so much value for that person, even if he can't help that person, like even if he can't build for that person, he's still there to provide value and help in a way to like refer them to someone else or whatever. So, it's more than just being a builder. It's about being a really good human being, So yeah, and Craig does that really well.
Awesome. Fantastic. Thanks, Corné. Kurt and Jeff, any final comments you wanted to fold in there?
Jeff, if you want to go, have you got anything you want to add? Otherwise,
look, it's everything that was said today, shared today is it all makes sense. So yeah, really take on board what Kurt and Corné have shared today. I think it's really important. And it's always about delivering value. Customers will always pay for what they see value in. Okay, so we might think, oh, it's too expensive, but if they see value in it, they're happy to pay for it. So that's one thing I've learned over the years. So building value in your brand, building value in your story, building value and giving value, I think, is really, really important. So thanks again for hosting today, Richard. It was great.
No, that's awesome, Jeff. Thanks for being on. And Kurt, for your final comments.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. Thanks again for hosting this. And just, want to reiterate what the guys were saying about the power of storytelling. That story about the watchmaker is brilliant. I don't know if it's the same one, Corné, that you were talking about, but I heard there's a watchmaker that competes with all the Swiss brands, including Rolex, just based on the story alone. So they make watches for like Navy SEALs, like specialist watches for athletes, and for like the Navy SEALs. And then you can't purchase one unless you are like an elite athlete or Navy SEAL, but then 5 or 6 years later, they release them, and for fighter pilots and things like that. And then these watches become like collector's items, and it's the story that really sells it. So that ties in beautifully with having a layered niche, building a story around that, being a solution provider, and then engaging architects early and recognize, guys, that you add a significant amount of value to an architect's practice. I know some of you are probably recoiling and cringing at the idea of working with architects, but just know you only have to have 3 or 4 relationships with the right architect for you to get into that illustrious 7-figure club. And you can help their business off the chart. And we've got plenty of data to show, where builders have reached out to architects saying, hey, is price shock an issue, right? a significant increase in build costs over the last 3 or 4 years. And having a value management process, charging for quotes, collaborating that pre-construction process with them and a quality estimator and a tool like ProCalc adds ridiculous amount of value. We've all heard as many as 70% of designs are not getting built because of price shock, right? So people go in design and construct using the traditional method of getting a design done, then selecting a builder. Speak to 5, get 3 quotes, pick one. It needs to be the other way around. Do your due diligence, select your builder. Go and, if you want a heritage home in your area with a bit of green technology and smart technology, ask yourself, is there a builder that does that? Seek them out, check the reviews, speak to people, select them, and then let them lead a collaboration through the pre-construction phase to ensure that you spend what you want in your budget and you get the quality build as well. That's the message that I'm pushing pretty hard. Now, I think everything we covered today just ties in beautifully with that pre-construction process.
No, fantastic. Good on you, Kurt. That's really good. And look, guys, I think the thing to remember is that but amongst the 4 people presenting on this, we have seen, I don't know, so many builders go through the process of getting from, those first steps as a builder. They're really hard. They're hard work. And as you become more sophisticated and more accomplished in the way you do things, it's a case of just improving on those 1%ers. So I think that's pretty much it. Are there any other comments here? I think Craig Preston, are you there, mate? I think there you are, mate.
Smiles all around. I just want to acknowledge the guys you've put in the room today, Richard. So I've worked with Kurt, I've worked with Cornet, and I work with you still. Cornet is currently producing content for us across our projects, and that stuff is invaluable for the message that we're trying to communicate to, as Jeff said, our avatar. So just reading from my notes today, Kurt, value management process. I love how you're pushing that. I was very fortunate to be invited along to Kurt's workshop a few weeks ago. Richard, one of your team were there. It was just spectacular. I think Cornet had a flat tire on his bike. He couldn't make it that day. But nonetheless, the point I'm trying to make, if any of the guys on this and girls that aren't connecting with any of these guys, reach out, because in particular and I always say marketing and then sales. So from a marketing point of view, just getting that connection is super important. And I will say that did transform my business a few years ago when Cornet and I started together. In fact, I don't know if anyone else felt that, but Cornet, when you told that story just now, I was mesmerized. So when you tell a story, not you specifically, but on this occasion, it just demonstrates that telling that story and connecting with your customer, your ideal customer, is super important. And Jeff, as you mentioned, niching your business, super important. So, but that takes, a big set of kahunas to be the everyone builder, to being specific. And as Kurt, you talk and teach, that high value client, that high value, that high margin, that's what we're chasing. And just to put you team together today and to be invited into this group, it's a real special. So thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
No, that's great, Craig. Thank you, mate. It's great to get that kind of feedback, because we really, I mean, all of us want to see people succeed in this industry, because when builders succeed, clients inevitably succeed. So that's really good. So thank you. Good on you, folks. Look, I think we've pretty much covered all the comments and questions, so we're pretty much under control. Thank you for coming along and being involved. We will basically send out a copy of the webinar, and we wish you well. Good on you, Luke. Thanks, mate. Thanks for attending, and good on you, Craig. That's great. And quite a few people. Looks like we've had quite a bit of benefit out of what we've covered today. So thank you, and have a good day.
Cheers. Thanks, guys.
Cheers, Richard. Thanks.
Bye now.
Cheers, everyone. Thanks.